Welcome to Inside La Porte Schools, where we focus on real conversations, clear answers, and one community. I'm Sandra Wood, Superintendent of the La Porte Community School Corporation. Today, we're taking you inside the corporation through meaningful discussions with the people who shape our educational community. Join us as we explore the stories and voices that make La Porte Schools unique. All right, so we are jumping into our next episode, and we are talking today about one of our brand new programs that launched in this past school year, the Slicer Ambassador Program. So this was a brand new pilot program for our district that we sort of embarked on this year to look at different unique and creative ways that we could help to build transparency within our district and things that are happening inside our district that the average person may not know about. And so one of the ideas that we had was to create this ambassador program that features a number of classes or hands-on experiences that we welcome community members to come into our buildings, come into the schools, and see firsthand what some of the great things are that are happening at La Porte Community Schools. Our ambassador program launched this year with about 12 to 15 individuals from the community being a pilot program. This year, our participants were asked to join us. The list of the participants that were put together as sort of our pilot group was sort of set up before I got here. And I asked the question of, how did we find these names? Like, where did these names come from? And what I understand was that our principals, our directors were asked, who are the people in your schools that ask critical questions, that aren't afraid to stand up and ask a question about something that's happening. We want this to be an engaging process, so we were looking for specifically those community members that were going to come in to learn, but also to give us feedback and to provide perspective that we were looking for. And I think we were really successful in that. We had a good group for this. Both of you and the others that were part of the group, I think, really all rose to that. And now as we move forward into next year, we are looking at opening this up to the community and having an application process so that we can welcome individuals who are interested. So we'll talk about more detail on that towards the end of our episode, but I want to welcome, first of all, our two guests today. We have two of our pilot program Slicer Ambassador participants with us who are going to talk a little bit just about what they experienced through this program. First, we have Mericka Beaty. Welcome.
Hello.
And also Craig Menne.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So share with our audience just a little bit about who you are and how you're connected to La Porte Community Schools.
So my name is Mericka Beaty, and I actually work within the system of La Porte. I'm the Director of Community Corrections, and I'm connected through the school because I'm a generational alumni. My father graduated from La Porte High School. I graduated from La Porte High School, and I have she's now a junior, will be a junior at La Porte High School. So I was always involved in PTA. My daughter cheers, so I'm very much involved in all of the sporting events. And my father actually coached quite a few girls basketball, girls softball for La Porte High School. So diehard awesome. Slicer.
That's awesome. Craig?
Yeah, and similar for me. I guess generational. I hadn't thought of it that way, but my father actually not only went to La Porte, but then also served as a teacher and then assistant principal for a number of years at the high school prior to retiring. I went through, graduated from La Porte, as did my wife. We have three daughters, one of whom graduated last year, just finished her freshman year at college. We also have a junior. And then our bonus baby is a rising second grader at Kingsbury.
Okay.
So great to hear, again, just kind of across the corporation, just a lot of the things that are taking place. My mother-in-law also taught, and then my wife as well taught for a decade. So again, kind of hearing their perspectives, to be able to kind of piece some of these things together was great. Once a slicer, I guess we're always slicers. That's right, yeah. In fact, it's on my father's, they did some pre-planning. It's on his headstone, Go Slicers.
Really?
So across from, he also coached football, so across from Kiwanis Field.
Oh, that's so cool.
There's a big orange Go Slicer, so took that quite seriously, but yeah.
Yeah, so. Very cool.
Yep.
So the both of you were on our list, and we reached out back in, I think, August, and informed you as well as a number of other participants that were selected that we thought you would be great participants for this brand new program. And both of you said yes and dove right in with us and joined us for the experience. So starting out, I'm just curious kind of when you received that message and got that email that you were selected to participate in this program, what were you thinking? What kind of thoughts came to mind with this being a brand new program? Wasn't anything that you'd heard about before?
I was intrigued. I was honored as well for somebody to select me to be amongst the pilot members. But I was intrigued to see what it was all about and wanted to know more about the school system that my daughter is a part of.
Awesome.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting. The program at the end of the day for me was a little bit about education. As you pointed out, a lot of us just sort of, I suppose, community lay people, as it were, truly don't know what goes on. So to learn about that, not only from leadership, but the leaders within all of the various areas was really a great experience. So yeah, in terms of the ability to be part of the inaugural program, yeah, it was great. So thank you for doing it, and as well just for the leadership of wanting transparency. Mm-hmm. That's not the easiest thing to do. So
Absolutely.
I think from a corporation perspective, tip of the cap to you all for trying this.
I think our district went through a strategic planning initiative a few years ago, and that was a major finding throughout some of our community surveys, our student surveys, parent surveys, all talked a lot about the desire to feel like there was transparent communication between the school and the community. So obviously that's one of our goals. But we know, of course, in this day and age with social media being what it is, people will tend to draw conclusions about what's going on in the school based on things that they've heard or maybe an isolated experience that they've had here and there. And so one of the goals of this program was really to try to show firsthand some of the things that are really happening so that there can be actual information that's out there and actual understanding. So we had topics that we covered. So each of our sessions focused on a specific topic, and we started out with school budget and finance. So that was our very first session because we kind of felt like you need to know how the money works because that sort of is the foundation for everything else that we're going to talk about. So we started with that as a topic. We moved into athletics, early childhood, career and technical education. We did a session on the Kessling campus, curriculum and assessment, operations, and then special education programming were our sessions. So each of those, we structured it as kind of a 2 to 3 hour session. We planned for 2, but most of our sessions, I think, went over because everyone was so engaged and asked so many good questions. So of those sessions, tell me just, are there any that pop out in your mind as that was my favorite or the one that I felt like I really took the most information away from?
I can't really point out one that was my favorite because I felt like everything was important and everything was kind of spot on. I really appreciated the diversity of the topics that you all covered. Mm-hmm. I will say as far as the financial and transparency, I was very enlightened. There was a lot of things that I did not know. There was a lot of things that I had to go back and question myself over. When my daughter was in preschool, before she went to preschool, I investigated every preschool around. I went and spoke to all of the preschools. I spoke to, if it was a ministry, I wanted to make sure they aligned with my beliefs. But when it came to her going to elementary school, this is the school that you go to. Yeah. I didn't do any type of research. I knew nothing. And so I kind of was excited that this is here because now you know. Like you said, a lot of times on social media, somebody can say, oh, I seen a new school bus. And the football team needs new uniforms, so why did you buy a school bus? Mm-hmm. And it's a lot just that the misinformation and that the community doesn't understand that there's different funding items. There's so many different funding items. There's so many things that can't cross. You can't use certain money for certain things. And so it's just a lot of information that the community needs to know, and I'm glad that I was able to get that information.
Yeah, and actually the participants in that session, we got such good feedback from that. We actually started using that presentation in multiple other settings. So we had a staff committee meeting with our benefits committee, and so we used that presentation with that group. And so this group was able to help us kind of see, like, this isn't good information that needs to get out there. And so we've started as a result of that, we have started trying to present that information as often as we can, and I think we'll probably continue to do that. What about you, Craig? Anything stand out?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think starting off with that was good. It set a good, foundation. Here, right, this week's 4th of July and right the birth of the country and the sort of back at the founding of the country where the one-room schoolhouse was pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Today, the complexity of running a school district, all of the constraints, I would agree in terms of the Enlightenment, just the legislated constraints around what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. Here's how the funding calculations work. And again, just the sheer complexity of that, extremely eye-opening, very valuable just to understand. And glad to hear you're using that in other areas. Mm-hmm. Part of my feedback was, hey, as part of the onboarding for new employees, be super valuable because everyone contributes, everyone can make an impact on, the cost structure and bring creative mm-hmm. ideas to help stretch the dollar as far as possible. So really great to hear that. And I think there's a lot of good collaboration amongst the team. The other one that really jumps out to me was maybe the career and technical, I'm forgetting the specific name. But that was nice to have the actual students come in and share the career paths that they're on.
Yeah.
I felt I had no idea 30-some years ago when I went through La Porte, there was kind of the wood shop, automotive, and certain programs there. But the scope of this expanding into healthcare, for example, every single kid on the panel felt like they were prepared for the next chapter. They were prepared to come make contributions to the community. I've started a couple of businesses over the years, and so to know that there's a pipeline of talent from a workforce perspective is important. Mm-hmm. Recruiting people here and knowing, again, that there's folks that are going to be able to lead and serve the community is great. So those are the two that really made a significant impact. But again, every single one of the programs having the opportunity to hear directly from those leaders, presenting their perspective, again, some of the constraints and the challenges that they have, some of their goals, some of their priorities, and candidly just their experiences. Mm-hmm. A lot of pride around wait, these folks have got their acts together.
Mm-hmm. So both of you being parents mm-hmm. in the district, you obviously have children that are engaged in school and in extracurriculars and all of the things. So both of you probably kind of came into this experience feeling like you were somewhat connected to what goes on in the school just through the experiences of your children, I would guess. When you actually got in and started participating in these sessions, were you surprised about the level of different things that are going on that maybe you had no idea existed within the school corporation?
Again, I would say just the overall complexity. Intellectually, it's okay, there's a lot of things that must go on behind the scenes. But again, hearing directly for example, as a parent, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with some of the operations folks and hear that there are policies and active procedures that relates to school security, mm-hmm. right? Unfortunately, we're living in a time where that's a concern as a parent. Mm-hmm. So to know that, right, there's again, training and teams that are looking after that certainly gives me peace of mind on that basis. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, some of the other programs that maybe my kids haven't had exposure to, I just think it's great to know from a community perspective that those kids have those, that they have those opportunities. Mm-hmm. I'd say again, not necessarily surprises, but having a deeper understanding.
Sure.
Something I'm grateful for. So then for other conversations with their colleagues or whoever it might be, to be able to point to some concrete examples with names of individuals mm-hmm. who are leading these mm-hmm. things up is great.
Have you had that opportunity? Has that come up since you've been a participant in this program to where you maybe heard somebody talking about something in the community or someone in passing mentioning something and you're able to say, actually, I have some information about this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Again, more on the funding perspective, uh-huh. right, and more precisely, the complexity of that. Yeah. It's not as simple mm-hmm. as parents or individuals, or even as a business owner, right? You have a lot of freedom to allocate dollars to priorities. So the constraints that you have mm-hmm. here, it's the brand new intermediate school versus mm-hmm. the school that has other, right, the air conditioning is going out, these types of things, to be able mm-hmm. to say, hey, no, there's mm-hmm. capital constraints and, mm-hmm. and trade-offs and things that have to take. And again, not being an expert, but to be able to try to provide a little bit of oxygen to the reality of what you all deal with, what you all manage.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And I will say one thing that really surprised me, and in a good way, is I think it's called the tax referendum.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know much about it. And so it caused me to go back and do a little research on my own, and I looked at some of the larger school systems in Indiana and figured out how they became the powerhouses that they are, and through taxes. And so sometimes we just don't understand, we think that people want to take,
Sure.
but you're actually depositing into your community. So
Right.
that was one thing that really, now we don't have one in LaPorte County.
Right.
However, I would not be opposed to one if they asked us about it, because learning just what it can do for our community.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who may not be familiar with what we're talking about, so a referendum is a process where a school district can go to the taxpayers within a community and say, we have needs operationally, if we need to be able to adjust salaries to be able to pay our employees a more competitive wage, or we need to address utility costs are raising and things like that, or if there were capital needs as well, which means we would maybe need new construction to improve some of our buildings or some of our resources and things like that. We can go to the community and ask them to vote. It would be part of the election process on whether or not they would agree to pay a little bit more in taxes to fund the needs that the school district kind of sets up. And there are quite a number of school districts in our area that have gone successfully to their communities and requested a referendum and then have been able to do some really cool things. And so that is something that we talked a lot about in that session, and we're able to sort of see how is it that some districts, when we go and see, and they have beautiful football stadium and they have a brand new high school, how did all of that happen? And a lot of that is connected to tax referendums. So as we're moving forward with this program, it was so successful this year that we've committed that we are going to continue this, and this is going to be something that, again, we open up to the community. And so we'll be taking applications for anyone who wants to participate in this process for next year. So what is it that you would like to see moving forward with future cohorts of this program that we are? Is there anything that you want to definitely say we need to keep this, or is there anything that you would like to see us integrate that maybe wasn't included that we could work on putting into the program for the future?
I think probably one of the concerns of the community, so I think it is to maybe have something over transportation. And how that plays in. I think my mother was a bus driver for LaPorte Community School, so I know the history behind bus drivers getting up in the middle of the night or in the morning just driving their routes to get comfortable with it. And a lot of times we hear conversations about it, but we really don't know what all goes into what the bus drivers do. In the transportation aspect, even transporting our children to sporting events or to educational events. And so I think that aspect, I think that would be a great addition.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the things also that we've tried to focus on through this process, is that if there was a need for a specific session based on something that was happening in the community at the time, we would sort of incorporate either an additional session or we would revamp something. And we kind of touched on transportation, but I think you're right. I think that is something that we hear a lot about in the community, and the concerns with some of the challenges we face with transportation. So I like that thought for the future, that we maybe spend some more time, because I imagine there were probably a lot of questions in that session that we just didn't have time to cover.
The recommendation would be to get as many people as possible into the program. Again, just the exposure, right? Knowledge is power, and giving folks facts. It's all really good and rewarding. I perceive one of the challenges to be, and I wasn't able to make every single program due to travel schedules, but probably some conversation around, it is a two-way street. What are proper expectations for parents? There's a lot of, as a dad, right? I feel like my job is to provide to the school corporation kids that are hardworking and well-behaved. Right, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of mental health problems in the world today, right? LaPorte is not immune from that, right? There are challenges that are outside the scope of the school corporation that are legitimate challenges that require the complete community involvement, right, to try to fix and support people and lift them up and, right, to build the best possible environment for, every single child. So I don't know that maybe that's outside the scope of what this program can or should do, but it feels like maybe some of the dialogue around there. And
Definitely.
It is where you're in a unique position, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a business, you've got kind of different dynamics and, it's competitive. Here, the schools, right, it's competitive and from a voucher perspective. But again, all of these constraints that you have make it a pretty tall task to I don't know, I guess to provide optimal outcomes for every single child when so many people, it's just such different, right, such different places.
Yeah, for sure. Talking a little bit about how we were working to try to incorporate things that were happening or the things we were hearing in the community at the time, one of the sessions that we ended up adding in that wasn't on the list initially was the session at the Kessling campus, where we brought the participants in and everyone had the opportunity to talk to some of the staff there. We heard a little bit about the incorporation of that campus and the two schools kind of coming together and merging into that campus. And then the participants had an opportunity to actually tour the building and see firsthand what it's like inside that campus. And Craig, I think you didn't make it to that particular session.
Yeah,
so this question will kind of be for Mericka on this, but there's been a lot of chatter in the community about whether that was the right decision. We did 2 episodes on this podcast about that topic, and then thought that it would be good to bring this group of ambassadors in to be able to see firsthand. So I'm just curious your thoughts from that, having probably heard some of the chatter that had been in the community previous about some of the challenges that have been perceived with that campus. And then when you had the opportunity to actually come in and see things in action, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think uniquely, both of us, I think our children are both juniors. And they were the first 5th grade class when they consolidated and brought 5th grade up. So we had a very unique perspective because, for lack of a better term, our children were the guinea pigs of that situation. And I think one thing that just made me more alert and aware and have empathy for the school system is I did not connect the dots as far as the culture that they were trying to create at the school system.
Yeah.
So you had all these different teachers coming from different school systems that they had been a part of for years.
Yeah.
And each school system has their own identity, their own culture at that school. And then to merge all of those into one school system, at that time I was more concerned about our children and how they were doing. But it never dawned on me until I spoke to the teachers and the leadership of that school that it was beyond just our kids coming to the school, but you had a host of issues going on. And now I'm hearing that the school system is so much better because they have had an opportunity to establish their own culture. And that's something that I didn't think about at the time when my child was being, I felt like, rushed, to grow up. And so I think now if I was to speak to another parent about, what do you think about Kessling Intermediate or Kessling Middle School? I would most definitely tell them, it's not the same. Yeah. That they have grown tremendously.
Yeah. Craig, it'll be interesting for you having a little one coming up and having had that experience of the first class that was in that 5th grade on the Kessling campus. Yeah.
Change is hard, right, for everyone. Yeah. And so that's a very, very big change. Great to hear from your perspective that kind of the goal there, and I think to be able then to prepare, say, my daughter, hey, here's what this looks like, here's what to expect, we'll be better equipped for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Any advice if there's anyone listening to this episode that's thinking like maybe this is something that I should do next year or in future years when we have the applications are out there, any advice that you would give to someone who's like, I have the time to do it, I'm interested, but I'm not really sure if this is for me? What advice would you give?
I would say if you have the time and if you want to make a positive investment in your child's education, most definitely do it. I think it's valuable, the education portion of it, just knowing what's going on. And it's not limited to just finances. It's not limited to just academics, but it's the broad spectrum of what goes on. I think was very open. I felt very comfortable. If I had a question, I didn't feel uncomfortable asking a question. I didn't feel like my questions were overlooked. I felt like it was very open and honest communication, and I think that if you want to know what's truly going on, then be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice.
Yeah, I would say even if you don't have the time, but you're, this is something you're interested in, you don't have, again, I wasn't able to attend every single session. Mm-hmm. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? You can go into that knowing if I can't make every single one, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Every single session I attended, I got a lot of value from. Mm-hmm. So sad I wasn't able to make a couple of those, but it's just a unique opportunity as well. I mean, I think the ambassador name's really well put, because the only analogy I can draw, and I've never done this myself, but I know, say, economic development corporations or Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, they'll do international exchanges with, say, sister cities. So a contingent of people will come, like, say, from Colombia, or we'll go to Denmark, whatever the case might be, and they just expose people to just all the facets of those communities just to learn about how things operate. And so, like, versus traveling across an ocean, to be able to have that type of interaction here in our community, right, in a very important environment for our children, it's great. So again, credit to you guys for doing this. Anyone that has just even a curiosity, if you're just curious about what happens, like, and if you do have the time, yeah, absolutely, like, put in the application and keep doing it until you're, until there's room.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, I kind of touched on this earlier, and I think it was a two-way process for us too, because we got a lot of information from all of you as well. So there were questions that were asked in almost every session that we took back and said, we got to look at this. This is something that I haven't heard brought up before, but it's a good point, and we need to look to see what we can change or investigate further, whatever the case might have been. But I think that for us, it was just as valuable of an experience to have an outside perspective coming in and raising some questions that, maybe we hadn't thought of before, because, you get immersed in the day-to-day, and sometimes having that extra perspective is really helpful. So, that's something that I look forward to with future cohorts as we continue to build this, that the more back and forth we have with exposure and conversation and transparency, the better we can be for the community.
Well, and to add to that point, I think you made the point about diversity. I think you did a good job of curating very different perspectives. So there were faith-based leaders, there were nonprofit leaders, right? Just many of us parents, and so a lot of the questions that got asked were questions that I wouldn't have thought to ask. So even that was a valuable component of this versus, I suspect if there's chatter, or to the extent folks maybe have negative perceptions of the school corporation, well, there's probably maybe a circle of friends or family or folks with maybe just kind of one point of view, which is a valid point of view, but to have these additional perspectives, additional points of view was inherently valuable. So that's certainly something to preserve. I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
But again, hearing those questions and that input was great.
I would just say, if you're going to apply for the program, make sure you come in open and on the offense, not on the defense, because it's a very relaxed environment, and the school system wants your input. They want to know the community's feedback on the programs, and they want to give you the information. So I would just say, come in with an open mind.
That's really good advice. We mentioned then that our next cohort for the 25-26 school year, the applications are available now. So it's available on the La Porte website. So you go to the website and you'll find a link to that on the main page, and then you can fill out that application for anyone who is interested in possibly joining. We are going to have a limited number of seats available, so depending on the number of applications, there may be a process for vetting out, just so we don't end up, we need to have a manageable group, of course, with the number that we can have participate. The schedule of sessions is posted on the application, so you'll be able to check out those dates in advance and know for sure if they would work for your schedule. And so we are looking forward to having a lot of great applicants for the program and building a new cohort LaPorte and getting started with our official second group of Slicer ambassadors. And of course, to our ambassadors that participated this year, you're always welcome back. One of the nice things about our sessions, if you missed one, Craig talked about missing a couple, you can join us for those sessions that you missed this year, and we'll be happy to have you join us. So I want to thank both of you for your time today and for joining us and having this conversation, helping us to get the word out. And we hope that you and our other ambassadors will spread the word as the applications are now open. So anyone who's out there that would be good for this group will hopefully find the application and submit it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for all of your time. We appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Inside La Porte Schools. We hope you enjoyed hearing the stories that shape our community. Remember, this podcast is about you, your schools, your stories, your community. Stay connected, stay informed, and be proud of the difference we're making together.